August meeting of the Inmate Disciplinary Oversight Board. I will ask the chair to recognize the board members and those participating virtually.
All right, so I just want to recognize everybody in the room and Ms. Wiseman, who is appearing virtually. If we can go ahead and take roll call, starting with you, Mr. Frank.
Lee Frank. Here. You're best.
Mary Carfax here.
Montel Lindsay here.
Mike Dunn's here.
Ms. Wiseman.
Sorry, Betsy Wiseman here.
And Vanessa Murtaugh, chair, present. I'm going to go ahead and certify that we do have a physical quorum present and the meeting can continue and board business can be conducted. Mr. Lindsay, if you can go ahead and lead us in an opening prayer. Yes, you could. You could open us with a prayer. We'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you. Father God, I thank you for every board member in here, Father. We ask right now that you just hover over our state, protect our officials, protect our law enforcement and the citizens, Father God. Let everything we do bring glory to you, Father God. Let us dialogue without being disrespectful. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. With that, Mr. Stahl, I will turn the meeting over to you.
Thank you. Okay, let's get the approval of minutes from our last public meeting out of the way, if that's okay. It was the July 15th meeting. The transcript, I believe, was sent out to everybody. If there are any questions or comments about that transcript of those minutes, we can hear them now. Otherwise, I will entertain a motion to approve those minutes from our last meeting.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye. All opposed, please say nay. Great. So the minutes have been approved from July 15th public meeting. Thank you, everybody, for that. Moving on, I just wanted to bring everyone's attention before we formally begin the items on the agenda. A picture of Miss Eliza Fletcher. As we all know, her abduction and killing was a strong impetus for our creation. You know, maybe at the beginning of these meetings, it's worthwhile just to take a minute and remember the why we're here and the people of Tennessee and the important work that we do for them and their families all across the state. So that's why I have her up on the screen now. And I appreciate everybody's commitment to this and what we're trying to do today. Okay. Let's get into the agenda items. I'd like to start out with a recap of the previous month's work that the board has been doing. For anyone in the public or who may not be privy to the work of the board behind the scenes, this is an opportunity for us to remind everybody our day-to-day functions and the commitment and the work that each and every board member has been doing. We recently had a meeting with officials from the Department of Corrections. We had lasted over 90 minutes with several representatives where we were able to share ideas and some of our findings. So I want to let them know that we appreciate their time and we look forward to that collaboration as we move forward. We have been able to review more than 142 incidents from last month, disciplinary, Class A disciplinaries from across the state. So I commend everybody on their work doing that. We have set for next month's review over 213 separate Class A incidents. So I know everybody's hard at work doing those as well. And the goal is to, once we get to July's incidents, there were a total number of 1,596 different Class A incidents across the state. One of the things that we'll talk about today is our ability and our process to be able to review every single one of those. So I really look forward to our work today on that. I commend everybody on their use and building out of the spreadsheet that we've internally created that allows us to track some of these things. I think that's really, really good as we continue to, and we'll have some discussions today about how we can make that better. We were able to meet on the 9th, the 12th, the 5th, the 22nd, the 16th, the 31st, the 25th to have working sessions. Thank you, everybody who joined those. We were able to respond to a request from the legislature last month on a particular incident. And I know they appreciate our efforts and our work in responding to them. We're continuing to build out our infrastructure and facilities with finance and administration, like the FileNet system that we're building out, as well as our physical locations. So last month was extremely productive, and that can't happen without every one of you. So thank you for all of that. Okay, I will move on to our first agenda item. If there's no more talking points on the overview of last month's work, I do want to give everybody an opportunity to talk about it if they have anything they'd like to add about last month that I missed.
Yeah, I would like to say just for folks that are joining us, we talked about this yesterday. I felt just by the conversation we had with TDOC and the high-ranking officials that were gracious to be there with us for almost 2 hours, that you see what we're doing. We're on the same. There were things that we were bringing up that they were looking into. So I think that just, it made me feel, I was excited about that we're, focusing in on what they're seeing as well. And I think it was great that I'm not speaking for them, but I think TDOC at that point realized that, this board is here to make a difference. And I was just really proud of our whole group there. I thought it was great. So anyway, just for the people that might watch this online or watching it right now, that is a concrete thing that we did that, meeting with those folks on things that are as important as the disciplinaries and making sure Tennesseans are safe. I think we're on the same page, or at least we're heading that way where they realize that we're going to be a partner with them and we're here to stay. So I think it was great.
Absolutely. I can't agree more. Hey, Betsy, I just want to make sure, were you able to hear Lee well?
Yes, and I was going to jump in. I totally agree, Lee. It made me feel good that I feel like we're really getting in depth in the system and starting to know it, not as well as they do, but I don't know, even Jerry really might, we really can pick up on some issues. I was proud of everything you guys have done and what we've done. I agree. You don't hear me?
Yeah, you're coming in well. Great.
Okay.
Yeah, to echo Lee and Betsy's point, it was great to have not only those, I know they all represent TDOT, but like as Lee was saying, it was high-ranking officials. It's just for better, lack of better terms, and the synergy and the questions being answered just assured people at Tennessee that not only is this board working, TDOT is working, we're working together to keep Tennessee safe. So it was good to ask questions, to get answers, and just to see, because I believe everyone's goal is to make sure that we're all safe. We live in a prosperous state. So I commend every member of this board for their questions, their dialogue. It was educational, it was insightful, and just look forward to many more. And there's receptive to taking our recommendations and things that we thought make their jobs easier, that could help us look at good time. So I think all together, it was a great meeting. It was very productive.
I agree 100%.
And if no, a picture of Miss Elijah's graduate.
Would you like to go back to that?
No, does the public get to see that, or was it only us?
No, Betsy, you were able to see that, right? The picture?
Yes, I was. It's not up now, is it? Because I don't see it.
No, I stopped sharing it so you could see us, but I tried to post that so that if people watch the video, they will see it.
I think I think that was a good idea, just to remind us of how in the room, the weight of it, the seriousness, and the impact that overlooking or not staring at these things can have on the community, on the family, on children. So, and I think we had like an official, we all just had like a moment of silence that was unannounced for a moment, but it was a great reminder that we travel here and what we do makes a difference. And our officials, the legislator wants to make a difference. And we pray and hope that no one else has to experience that. And just God bless that family. And just pray healing.
Absolutely. That's great. Appreciate everybody for that. Anyone else on last month's work? Okay, wonderful. Well, let's move on to the second talking point for the agenda item. And that is focusing in on what we have prioritized for the past month, and I think what's going to be a priority moving forward for the next few months, and that is our individual incident review process. So as we're all aware, obviously, taking a look at Class A disciplinaries is our priority. And we've been able to start to develop what I think is a very efficient and effective process to have all the different board members not only understand what those disciplinaries entail and what they look like, but to begin to think about, with what we're seeing, how we can affect change, how we can make things better. So this talking point isn't really for voting, but I want to give everybody an opportunity to talk a little bit if they have thoughts specifically on the importance that they place on this process and what they'd like to get out of it. Me as executive director, one of the things that I'd like to see come out of this process is I'd like everybody at the end of the month, and they've been able to review their particular incidents, I'd love for them to be able to say that they're very comfortable and confident in the way that they understand the process is supposed to work, and where some of those shortcomings are, that they've identified the shortcomings that for them personally make a difference and matter to the work that we do, and are able to come and have a discussion about those thoughts and maybe what next steps need to happen so that we can make some changes to those shortcomings, whether that be a recommendation or a policy change or whatever. So that's kind of what I see the goal of this incident review process to be, an opportunity for everybody to get a better understanding of what we're trying to do at a micro level, so that then we can extrapolate out on a macro level some ideas for the benefit of the Department of Corrections. Does everybody agree with that? Do we have more thoughts on what we're trying to do with this incident review process?
Well, I would certainly like to acknowledge work and effort that Jerry and Lee put into creating a checklist as kind of a roadmap for us. You know, obviously, in my former job, I spent a lot of time in Thomas, but never looking at these kinds of things. And so when we were chatting yesterday about that, I said, you know, this has been a great learning experience for me. And I really appreciate the fact that they took the time to create this checklist so that, you know, you can look in Thomas and be overwhelmed by everything that's in there. But having a roadmap so that when you go in, you know which screen to look at, which tab to look at. And these guys are the ones who did that work. And so I would just like to publicly thank them for that effort in creating a process so that we could get started. And then as we got the assignment of the incidents, we were able to say, okay, I know how I'm going to go through this process. And many of us have worked together either in pairs or in groups, working through and looking at the various incidents and the disciplinaries associated with the incidents. And so it's given us a time to collaborate and think about how we see this. Do we see this similarly? Do we see this differently? And, you know, ultimately, I assume we're going to come to a point where we talk about how do we look at all of them, and do we look at them individually, or do we look at them in some other way? But just the confidence that was built through having those experiences. And I know earlier you talked about the various dates, and there were many dates over the last month where we have come together and just gleaned a common understanding of how to look at this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree 100%. And that's we're going to get to more of that in the next bullet point. But I appreciate you highlighting Jerry and Lee, but as you'll see in the packet, you were able to define some of those things in that procedure as well, Mary. So we do appreciate your work on that as well. But Lee, Mr.
I
Frank.
was gonna say, but I'm his, I would be his Thomas friend. I gave that Jerry, we talk a lot, but this is a guy that did a lot of them, and he does the down and the dirty.
Well, I think it's perfectly appropriate to highlight some of the work that Jerry and Lee and Mary have done individually. But I will say nothing happens without the entirety of every board member. And so even just being here, we wouldn't be able to have this meeting now if everybody wasn't here and wasn't willing to listen and give their thoughts. So for sure, we've had some people who have have done some different things on their own volition. But at the end of the day, I really appreciate everyone's work on this, because we don't go anywhere with just one or two people rowing the boat. So well taken, Mary, for sure, and deserve it for sure. But everybody this past month and the past couple of months has really done some great things, and we can't highlight them individually, but I just want to say I'm really proud of the board as a whole too.
Real quickly, I was just gonna say, just the meeting, Quantel and Mary and Quantel did, and this is how for Mike or Vanessa or Betsy, how it went. Quantel's kind of quiet, and I know he's over there doing his stuff, and Mary and I and Jerry were talking, Jerry and I are finished, so we're just kind of talking and knocking ideas around, and Mary's off tonus. So that's how, that's what I thought was the benefit of those. If you guys are, if people want to join, you don't have to sit there and go, I can't get anything done. I mean, Quantel's over on kind of his own thing, and every now and then he'll chime in, but I can tell he's over there. You can kind of hear, he's doing his work.
Yeah.
But I think it helps as we're getting started, just the camaraderie, knocking ideas around. I mean, it's like you used to have in college, we have like a study session. Sometimes those don't work out, but I think they did just for that.
To echo that, the benefit of that was listening to them dialogue, and sometimes you run into a problem and somebody solve it while you're there. So it was, I was actually finishing my report to send in. And so a lot of things I was running into, hearing from Lee's point of view, Jerry and Mary, and look at this. So I'm getting to stop, look. So not only working, put the emphasis on working next time, Lee, and then doing the tutorial and listening. But it was like a college group study session, and get to hear everybody's point of views. Jerry, if you will, he's breaking down and surgical, going through each homeless, and we're looking at this, and we're going from, and then Mary's going from a standpoint of, I've worked here, but not on this lens. And so it was cool to hear everyone's perspective. I mean, it was hours on that. It was wow. But it was good. I think it get everybody, comfortable and ask questions and helped out one another. So it was a great session. Yeah, I go Brother Lee, great session.
Yeah, really good session. Really good. Okay, well, so I think we're all sort of in agreement on the goal of the incident review process. Is that fair to say?
Elaborate,
So the reason that we're going through this process where people are individually looking at the different Class A incidents for the particular month, the idea behind that is that people will, number one, get comfortable understanding the disciplinary process. So they understand how that a disciplinary offense occurred. This is the code. They had a hearing. This is the description of the hearing. They made a recommendation. They took action. Just understanding that whole process is of benefit, I think, to us. And then after that, giving everybody the confidence to look at those individual disciplinaries and say, I recognize that the process was improperly applied here, perhaps, or maybe it's just missing a piece that it's supposed to have, or maybe I'm recognizing a trend that I'd like to bring to the larger group as that we can do something about. For instance, I've noticed that all of my offense codes where it's been an assault on an officer, there's not being time taken away. And I think we need to look at those. So the idea is that we're all going through all of the disciplinaries across the state, and then we're all bringing our ideas together about what we're seeing, so that then we could take the next step, which is to evaluate, well, do we need to do something about that? What can we do about that? Do we need to do it on an individual incident level, or do we need to look at a macro policy level? Do we need to just have discussions with the Department of Corrections, or do we need to have discussions with somebody else about what we're seeing? So right now, the goal is to get very comfortable with what we're looking at, start to develop some of these ideas about particular incidents or trends, and then bring those to the larger group so we can have more fuller and more substantive discussions about next steps. Does that?
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, great. Well, in that vein, let's transition to the next talking point, which discusses the particular characteristics of the review process. And what I'd like to do is, if you will all look at the third page of your packet after the agenda, you'll see that there's a couple of inclusions on that. So the first two pages are what Dr. Karpos was referring to Mr. Frank and Mr. Vassbinder's work early on in this process, where they put together this checklist that allows everybody on an individual basis to go through a particular incident in TOMAS and review it for propriety. Was it correct? And then we're utilizing the spreadsheet that we've created and we continue to create to document what we're seeing in those individual. So that's what those next two pages are. After that, the third page, you can see was a review checklist that was created by Dr. Karpos that supplements the work that Mr. Frank and Mr. Vassbinder did. So the inclusion of these three things should allow everybody to go into any particular disciplinary for the month and look at it and fill out the spreadsheet with the applicable information and understand kind of what they're looking at. And then this next sheet was something that Dr. Karpos put together, which was a flow chart that she found helpful and that we could talk more about later on. But the idea was that these documents, the first, second, third, and fourth pages, these are the characteristics that right now we're going to continue to look at on an individual disciplinary basis. And then we're going to build out this process to put more of a narrow focus onto sentencing credits. So right now we're looking at these things, but this is not the end all of the process. This is what we're going to be doing right now. And then as we get more comfortable with this process, we're going to be adding things to it so that we continue to look further and further, and we can narrow our focus specifically on the sentencing credits issue. Does that make sense to everybody?
That was merely described. This was a workshop that we did, and Jerry and Lee, as they were talking, is through page 1 and 2. So I was just writing down their ideas, so I don't take credit.
Well,
Just
but it was a workshop. I mean, it was a workshop. Everybody, it's less about credit as it is about this is what we've created to help us complete the task of incident review. And the thoughts that I'd like to get from everybody. And Betsy, I'm sorry, you don't have the benefit of this packet. I don't have it saved. Everyone has it. I just compiled it into this. Yeah. So Betsy, I could try to email you all this stuff right now if you'd like to look at it. Would that be helpful?
Sure, I can look at it. Thank you.
Okay, give me 1 second. I had forgotten that you were going to be virtual today, and I did printouts, but I did not do.
Or you can send it to me after the meeting or at lunch break, so no hurry. Thank you.
Well, I'd like to. My thought is that maybe we could vote on the adoption of these papers so that we can then move on to getting out the disciplinaries next month. So I if it's all right with you, it would be great if you could maybe take a look at them, and that way you could give us your thoughts on your opinion of it.
Okay, I will do it.
Okay, let me send you what we're talking about here. This. You sent it to her? Okay, that's great. No, 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 I haven't found it yet. So, well, I'd have to find multiple. Betsy, Jerry sent you a text with some photos of the documents we're talking about. Are you able to see those?
Yeah, but I bet it'll come through in a minute.
Okay. All right. Why don't you take a minute and take a look at that? And if you've got any questions, we'll stay on this agenda topic here for a few more minutes. Okay. And what I'd also like to point everyone to is the rest of their packet beyond those documents are just sheets that have been put together by different members of the board or by the Department of Corrections to help us understand what we're looking at. So, for example, there were a number of offense codes that have been increased to Class A that you'll find in Thomas might still be listed under Class B or C. I think Mr. Vassbinder put together that sheet for us. So as you go through these disciplinaries, that will be helpful for you. And then the next piece of it is the punishment guidelines, the sentencing guidelines that's published by the Department of Corrections. That's a good reference as we go through these disciplinaries. And then there's another checklist. The last 2 pages are some descriptions of the offenses and the maximum sentence credits that should be taken for each of those. So these are not, yes. That was your last page? Okay.
Here, it's not numbered. So this.
Yep.
Is
That's
that-
the Department of Corrections. Yep. And then those 2. Yes. Yes, you have everything. So that's just reference material for these things. But I'd like to hear everybody's thoughts because the next step I'd like to take on this agenda item is to vote on the adoption of these checklists so that everybody is comfortable saying this is these are the checklists that we're going to utilize as we continue to build out this process. But once we assign everybody individual disciplinary offenses for their months, they know that if they have any questions about what they're supposed to be doing, these checklists kind of walk you through that. Now, we've already done it for the month of May, so it's going to be the same process. Nothing's changing. But if we want, we can formally adopt these if we want to. And that's why on this agenda item, I have a discussion/vote. If we want to vote on the adoption of these papers, we can. If we don't have to because we've already been implementing them for the past month. So no changes. Just wanted to give the board an opportunity to discuss and adopt things if they thought that was necessary. So I'll open it up to the floor. We can have further discussion about these papers, or we can entertain any motions that anyone might have. And if I hear no further discussion or motions, we'll just move on to the next agenda item.
I'm gonna make a motion. I move that we adopt all 9 pages. Total of 9. And use what's just on that first page, Class A disciplinary review in Thomas, and put it in our handbook, whatever it is we're putting together with all of our policy procedure, that we adopt it in total as a 9-page guide. That's my motion. I think it's great. I don't think.
Was that a second, Mr. Lindsay? Okay. Okay, I'll open it up for discussion. That's the motion. Ms. Wiseman, were you able to look at those? Did you have any thoughts? I know you don't have the benefit of being here with us, so I just don't want to miss out if you have something. Well, anyone else? I'll open up the floor.
I think, well, I'll just start it. I think that all of these things, each provides something, right? Like you have one that's in script more or less. So if you learn better that way, that's there. Right? And then you have this one that's great and color coded with yeses and nos. So if that works better for you, you got that. Then you got a flow chart. That works better for you, you got that one. Right? We got our codes, we've got the TDOC guidelines, and then we've got an expansion of that. So I think in total, for now, where we're at covers all our bases. And I don't know that we need anything else or anything needs to be changed because this is what we've been using and it's working. Right? We're already using it. So that's my debate discuss. If anybody else has something contrary or something to add.
I actually agree with, the chairwoman. I wanted to ask, where were we with, Vice Chair Dunn, the 4 things he created? Did we adopt those and add those? Were credits and was it merited? Was it warranted? Were they taken away? Should they be back? Where did we, ever land as a board on those? Are they in here?
They aren't in here because as the subcommittee, we're still working on finalizing, you know, what our thoughts might be that we present to the larger board. But as a component of that, question number 1, Ms. Ben brought up in that meeting had to do with the award of sentence credits. And remind me, was it question 2 or 3 where he asked the question about the withdrawing? And was it justified to withdraw credits?
Dr. Carpenter, it was 2 or 3. It was in, I can confirm. It was 2 or 3.
Let's 2 or 3. You're right, Dr. Carpet.
You're
Concur.
So my thinking
You're amazing.
was, since we're talking about reviewing these disciplinaries, that would be the moment in which there's that opportunity to withdraw credits. And so to that end, that was kind of my thinking and putting together this flow chart when we're looking through and thinking about the behavior that we're seeing described here and what the sanction was or the decision was by the Department of Corrections. Apart from their decision making about whether or not it was warranted to take science credits, what might a board member's thinking be about that? So this is just meant to address one of those 4 questions that Mr. Dunn brought up, certainly. But I only created it because it was constructive in relationship to the review process. Seems like the other 3 questions, we're not going to find those answers in the disciplinary hearings itself. We don't have to leave those.
Exactly. And echo our chair lady's point, I think this is great and complete and an excellent guideline for everyone to go through. In her words, where we're at right now. And in the future, we're hoping to get extra avenues for the things we can't see yet, but that'll come later with fiscal.
That's right.
approval.
That's right. That's right.
That's not up to us.
That's right. This is certainly not the end of our process, but it's the beginning for where we are now. And I think it will help us answer some of those questions later on as we gain an understanding at a micro level. That's sort of the point of this. Is it's the start, and we are going to continue to build this out. And my hope is that at these next few meetings, we will have some more of those substantive discussions. How do we figure out the answer to question number 2? How do we figure out the answer to perhaps this is the best answer we can have to question number 1, and then we'll continue to evolve as we get some time. So I think that's the way it's shaping up. And if we're good with that, Ms. Wiseman texted me. She's having some technical issues with her mute button, but she doesn't have anything further to add. So if there's no more discussion, we can move to a vote. Okay, so the motion is to formally adopt the packet as it exists, the 9 pages that we've highlighted for the benefit of the incident review process moving forward, with the caveat that this will continue to build itself out as appropriate and as the board needs. All in favor? All opposed? Okay, the motion passes. Thank you, everybody. I think that is leap forward for our mission. And I look forward to continuing to do the work that we've been doing on this. We have been going for about 45 minutes. There's only 2 agenda items on the meeting for today. So the agenda has the next item being discussed at 1 o'clock after a lunch break. We can begin that agenda item now, or we can take an early lunch.
Got 30 minutes, so I vote we go ahead and discuss it.
Okay. All right. So the next agenda item you'll see is titled Discussion/Vote on Protocol for Individual Incident Review for Calendar Year 2024. The goal of the individual incident review process in the way that it has been moving forward now is that if we look at the individual incidents, the disciplinaries per facility per month, and we have individual board members review individual disciplinaries under a static and standardized protocol, then it will allow us as a board to have eyes on every single Class A disciplinary from the beginning of the year until the end of the year. I want to talk a little bit about that. That is a challenge. That is something that the legislature specifically highlighted in the creation of this board as being a challenge. I think we are up to that challenge. I would love for us to accept that challenge and try and accomplish that goal. I think it's something we could really be proud of. I think it's something that is doable. And so I would like to frame the incident review process in a way using the standards that we just voted on, to where every person is assigned a certain number of incidents per month to review. And then we all come together and discuss the ones that need further discussion or further information or whatever. But that, if we do that, if we adopt a system that we'll discuss in our next agenda point, then that will allow us to say that we have looked at every single Class A incident from the beginning of the year until the end of the year, which is not only impressive, but really, in my mind, really fulfills an important mission of this board. That won't be easy. It will be a challenge, but I think we can create a system that will allow us to do that. And I'd like to take that issue up now with the board members to see if that's something they'd like to formally adopt and do moving forward. In my mind, that's the goal of the individual incident review process. But I'd like to open up to the floor and hear everybody's thoughts on whether they think that's a good idea or whether they think it's too difficult a task, or if they have other ideas.
I think it's a great idea. It slices the pie evenly, gives us each an equal piece. And I know Lee and Jerry have done extremely well, just advancing and going all over the map and doing all kinds of great work. And because they want to, that's amazing. So this would spread the burden or the joy of the work evenly, and it would be great for everybody to experience the same amount, and not just this person has this facility and this person has this facility, because every facility is going to be different. Numbers are going to be different. Workload's going to be
I'll
different.
take more pleasure.
No, I already have one. And Berry. No, Lee, that was already mine.
So that would probably fall into the executive director's plate to divvy up by caseload, which is going to bleed over into different facilities for the same person because of the number of cases involved. So
That's exactly right. And I do want to have more of a discussion about exactly how we plan on doing it. But I just want to make sure that as a board, everybody is comfortable and their vision is consistent, that this is what we're going to try to do. And just for context, there's somewhere between 1,500 and 1,600 individual incidents in a month. Everybody will be assigned somewhere around 200 for their own. And if we extrapolate out an average of 1,500 incidents for the month, we're going to be close to 20,000 incidents for the year, which is a lot. It's an impressive number. I mean, I would commend everybody right here, right now, to committing to doing that, because it's not easy, but I think we can do it. So that's, how we do it is what we'll discuss next. But I just want to make sure everybody right now is willing to raise their hand and support that effort.
Well, when you ask the question like that, I don't think we're allowed to say no.
No,
Woohoo, team! What do you do? Right? Like, no, I think it's very clear that we all agree that looking at all of them is best.
Okay.
Right? I'm pretty sure we're all in that place. I think how we do that, I think, is the question that we need to ask. Now, as you were talking, thought came into my head, and I know, so there's this, Lee started it in my head with the whole I want lunch, right? Like, we kind of have already been assigned particular prisons by when we were going back to pull the extra class A's, right? So I kind of feel, this is my thought, that if we stick to a specific prison, because like Lee has gone in, and Jerry too, where they go in and it's like every 5 days they pull, right? And they're able to keep up very well with pulling the class A's. Like every 5 days they go back and pull those. If we're waiting on you to assign, that puts us that there's a longer lag. You see what I'm saying? So I know that the numbers would not be even, but if somebody, say you, were to look at the numbers for each of the facilities and try to balance them, and maybe as close as possible, right, to where it's even, it's never going to be even. It might be off 10, 20, but that would give, Lee's not waiting on you, right? Like, he's able to go in and same with Jerry. They're very, very efficient. And I think, and I'm sure Mary's doing the same thing. And I think the rest of us will get there as well, right? As we get more confident and competent. But that would be my proposal, to stick to a specific group of facilities so that you can stay on top of it and nobody's waiting on you. And that would take something off your plate. You wouldn't have to do that because we would already know, right? So that would be, and we get to know that facility really well. Very familiar with its patterns because we'd be looking at it every. I think it'd be easier to spot maybe some errors. That's me. That's my input.
So just
not personally tied to it if nobody likes it.
So I'm going to move on from, because I think Vanessa, Ms. Murtaugh has, I agree with her that I think everybody, unless Ms. Wiseman, unless you have a disagreement, that we're all in agreement that we're going to move forward with the distribution of the caseload on a monthly basis. So now we're moving on to that next agenda item that talks about method of distribution.
No, I thought, I'm sorry, we're just deciding if we're gonna do it all.
Well, I think we've all agreed that we are going to do this. And now are we getting into a discussion about the method of distribution?
Yeah, it's just, we were, let's say there's 1,400 for 1 month, even though there's more like 1,550, 1,620, whatever it's like. And we put them all, I just thought we were gonna put them all, like, however we all put them in there, like an AOO, and then you got 2 RTPs, and they're just random, totally random. And then you just put them all in a big list, 1,400, and Jerry's number 1, I'm number 2, Mary, and then you get Jerry's number 8, I'm number 9. Is that how we're gonna do that?
Oh.
Well, that's
the first I've heard of that.
That's what we're discussing. That's it. That's the.
That would be clear. That way I'm getting all different prisons and all different incidents, and it's the luck of the problem. Whatever, however is there a program that does that? Certainly there will be.
Yes. Yes, it makes 100%. I mean, here's what I'll say about this discussion. We can do whatever everyone wants to do. So it's less a function of practicality as it is a function of us just agreeing. So to your question, Lee, yes, we can do that. We can have the list out and we assign a number to each of the board members, and their number gets highlighted. Lee's green, and all the greens go to Lee. So we can absolutely do that. Ms. Murtaugh is proposing a different method, which is to say that each month everybody has a facility, and they just look at their facility and the incidents that happened at their facility. So those are two differing methods. Does anyone else have a suggestion for a method of distribution?
Michael,
Yes.
I had to end my connection and rejoin because I couldn't get the microphone to work. But so I missed, what is Lee's? I heard Vanessa, but what is Lee's idea for dividing the work?
So Lee's idea is that we have the spreadsheet right now is broken up into the incidents by facility. But imagine the facility portion of it was eliminated, just disappeared. Now you just had a list of all the incidents for that month across the state. And if we assigned a number to each individual board member, so for example, Lee would be 1, Jerry would be 2, Mary would be 3, you would be 4. We would go down the entirety of that list, and the first incident would be assigned to Lee. The second incident would be assigned to Jerry. The third incident would be assigned to Mary. The fourth incident would be assigned to you. And then that would repeat all the way down the list.
Okay, thank you.
So the benefit of that, I think I hear, is that you get a cross section of not just offenses, but of facilities, and it distributes perhaps the numbers more evenly on a monthly basis. And then we have an alternate suggestion, which is that we keep it by facility. And the benefits of that might be that there's consistency and expectation on a month-to-month basis for who's doing what, and there's no question. So those are the two, I think, ideas on the table right now. Yes, Ms. Murtaugh.
I just want to follow through, like I'm walking through Lee's idea. So there's a master list. And is somebody pulling, number 1 was Jerry, then you go 8 down. That next one is his.
Or 7.
Well, it would be the 8th one on the list. It would be the 8th one on the list.
Okay.
So are you pulling those and handing them to him? Or is he responsible for looking at the list and saying, number 1 is mine, number 8 is mine, right? And going down the list and doing it that way? Like how?
I can, yeah. I mean, we can either do it, yeah.
I'm asking, like, how are they getting assigned? Like,
I can
is he
compile
just
it.
getting a list and they're his?
You
So
can
then we
also-
would be,
Right.
so we would be a month
Like we
behind.
got the list for May and June. It's just gonna be, he shoots mine. Jerry's gonna have totally different ones. You're gonna have different ones. Mary's gonna have different ones, but we're covering all of the 1,500.
Right, no, I just wanted to see how that was
I
gonna
mean,
play out.
I just think that would be the simplest and the fairest, because everybody's getting the same, because. there's
So
no
then
way
you would have
can
to
the
do that for
president.
us.
And sometimes Whiting's got 300, sometimes it's got.
I mean, I'm
It's
I'm
fine with
asking
me.
because you know, like, you are
Whatever.
just one guy, and right now, we're not getting anybody else. So that would be an extra task that he's gonna have to do, and I don't, if he's
But
up to it.
I am up to, if the board says that this is going to be most effective for
I just
them,
wanted-
then
you
I
see the
am
equation.
totally, I appreciate that. I do,
That's
I
fine.
do. But I want to do whatever is going to make it best for you all. That's my entire job, is to just make your job easier and better and more efficient and all those things. So don't worry about workload for me. I'll figure it out. I just want to know what you want, and I will make it happen. for you.
So, question.
Mhm.
Distributing,
Oh, go ahead.
the 200 a month, would that be more feasible for you? Is it better to send me each month, like,
It's all the same.
all the same?
It's all the same.
So really, it's whatever the total is divided by 7.
Right.
That's more or less what each of us would get on. And that may fluctuate from month to month, whatever the total is, but the total is always divided by 7.
And it should be around 200 or so, you know.
Go ahead.
Who's pulling them from the master list? Who's gonna pull and make the list of all the class A's and then the B's and C's that are now A's? Who's doing that part?
Well, we have it
Well, I
for,
know I know you have been doing it, but I don't, you know, like, I just.
I can do a month. I did 12 days yesterday in 2.5 hours,
Big
but I was also talking.
Well,
no,
we
no,
have
I get that, like, I'm just asking these questions because that needs to be part of what we vote on, right?
It's-
Like, because that's gonna be part of the process, because somebody's gonna have to pull those, then he's gonna have to sort them, and then they get assigned to each person, depending on the lottery, on what your number is that month, right? Which I'm assuming number would change. That's something else we have to decide. If I'm number one this month, I should probably be number three or something else the next month, right? 'Cause it's supposed to be random, right? So like, we'll have to figure that part out too. So I just for voting purposes, when we do this motion, it's gonna have to include how are we getting the lists that Director Stahl is sorting for us? And how is it, we have to lay out the whole process, right? So, and I'm okay with you. If you guys are up for doing it, just like if he's up for doing that piece, then okay. But we all need to, like, we need to all decide, yeah, that's what, y'all need to say, yes, we are willing to do that. And that's, I'm not opposed to that at all, like, how about
But
Yeah.
keep in mind, we do have through July. So it's really just the new would be August, September, October, November, and December.
So,
well, and it could be in perpetuity. We don't
Could be in
know.
perpetuity.
It could be in perpetuity, right? So that needs to be something that for your entire appointment. Well, and then here's the thing, Mr. Frank, you're gonna leave us in a year. Who's gonna take, is the next person who's gonna take it over after you, right? This could be in perpetuity. So these need to be,
We're just doing it because we got the time. I'm doing it
right,
'cause
which
I
the
got
next guy may
And I
not.
don't
have.
mind doing it. I got a movie on. I'm just gonna kick it through. It's not a
Yeah,
big
yeah,
deal.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm with
that's-
you, but the next guy
that's a
might not.
strong point. You said in perpetuity and how people's tenures and their.
Yes, that's right. Your time is not for always.
Build that. in.
Yeah,
Well,
when you think about it.
It's, have an IT person. who can
Yeah.
Actually do the
That could be your
extraction.
assistant.
We just
There
don't.
you go.
If we get one, we'll know tomorrow, right?
We should know more tomorrow. I don't know if I'll get a definite answer tomorrow.
Now, sometimes people did that.
Yes, you all have created this population, this universe of known incidents for 2024 calendar year. Going forward, just like everything else evolves, we may be in a position where we can have an automated list of that that's produced for us out of Thomas. And then human beings wouldn't have to go on those screens of data. But for right now,
Yeah, it works.
this is what's working for us, and we're deeply grateful.
Sure. And it's sometimes to me, there's your guy right there.
And I mean,
That's right,
You
Jerry.
kind of fog your turn.
As long as I'm here, Jerry's here, so I'm always gonna have Jerry, right?
well, and I will say my thoughts on it too are to focus on this year. I'm less.
Reassess in January?
I mean, kind of. I'm less focused on the perpetuity as I am because the other point to that is I don't know if this is going to work best, but we haven't tried it yet. And so I'd like to get this year done. And then in January, February, maybe when new members come on board, we do reevaluate and we do ask ourselves, does this make sense? So that's why you'll see on the agenda item, I put a discussion vote on protocol for incident review for calendar year 2024, so that we don't get too caught up with saying this has to be how we do it from now on. I'm more inclined to say, let's do it for this year and see where it takes us. Yes, Ms. Murphy.
So the back ones. Are we saying just when you finish them, you finish them? And then going forward, if the list for July is compiled in August, right? July's incidents is compiled in August, distributed same month, August, when is it due? So this is the end piece, like when are we setting our deadlines? Because we have to discuss these in a meeting. So the past due ones, I know the last meeting I was at, I suggested perhaps, 2 months at a time, right? Like do January, February, March, April, because we got to get caught up before January. That's important, right? So what are our deadlines on previous months to discuss here and vote and decide? And then what are our deadlines for going forward through December?
Well, here are my thoughts on that just quickly. Tomorrow, if we're able to come to an agreement today on how we're going to approach the individual review process, I have an important meeting tomorrow morning, but in the afternoon, I was hoping that if we adopt the process, I can then go back through the backlog
Mhm.
and send out to everybody all of the assignments from January up through July. So that was my thought, and then people can work on them as they're available to, and at their leisure. Now moving forward, I was just going to wait until I got the final numbers for that month, and then do the randomization again, and then send out to everybody. So I don't have thoughts, and so I think this is a good question about how we bring our ideas back to the larger group once they've been formulated. I think there's two ways you can look at it. You can have a deadline, a formal process that says this is when we're going to talk about these and everybody needs to bring theirs, or we can have people bring them to the group as they are ready to present them. It's a very good question, but to answer that first part of that, how are we going to do the backlog? That was my thought, that once we formalize the process, by the end of the day tomorrow, maybe Friday at the latest, I will be able to get everybody what we already have. And then moving forward, as our two volunteer board members get me the numbers for the ensuing months, I'll randomize them and send them out as soon as they're available. And then the second part of that question is, okay, well, now you have some people that have finished their reviews for January. They have some thoughts they'd like to bring into the group. How are we handling that? Which is a very good question.
And my preference would be everybody's done January before we look at January. Everybody's done February before we look at February. So we're not asking the same questions twice, right? Like we all looked at it, we're doing it together. And then I would also say for backlog 2 months at a time, whatever I would say going like, so September's meeting, we should be looking at January, February, and wow, we're so behind. We're so behind because we're.
Well, we
behind on
can
the
do this. Well, we can do this. We can do it.
right?
Are we gonna- We have to talk about May and June. Those are done. Everybody, I guess. Same.
The samples are.
But not all of them.
But
Yeah, it's not all- right,
also-
good point, Mary.
Right.
So we have, in my mind, we have to walk before we run. We have to, this has been a tremendous learning experience, what we've been through the last 6 to 8 weeks in getting into reading hundreds of disciplinaries. But we have a couple of thousand, not disciplinaries, I said that.
That's right. We have to go back and.
We have a couple of
the
thousand
sample.
to read yet. And for me, I've got maybe some ideas about what it might look like to bring that to the group. But I think I need to read 1,000 more before I really finalize in my mind what would I be coming and bringing to the group to talk about? And then what would my expectations be for the group to do with it? So just like we've had to have these 6 or 8 meetings where we've gotten our hands into the disciplinary, just to even identify what are we going to be looking at and how are we going to notate that. Well, then the next step, I guess, would be, okay, well, once we're all real comfortable and have that under our belt, how do we now create a discussion for what are we bringing to talk about to meetings? That's just.
And I'll-
how I'm coming from.
And I'll just, going back to the May and June portion of it, part of what we discussed with the May and June portion was what we needed, further information that we needed on the individual ones. So we've had the discussion with TDOC, and I've gotten feedback from some of the board members that they've been able to resolve some of their questions for particular incidents. So I just want to mention again, go back to the incidents for May and June and reflect on the ones that you feel more comfortable with now. You've gotten the information that you like. I know we are also, and I have requested additional information from TDOC on particular incidents, and we're still waiting on that. So before we can have a discussion about May and June's incidents,
Right.
we are still waiting on information to get back. So just be aware that that's out there, but we may not be at the point yet where we are quite, even though we've done an initial review of May and June, we may not be to the point where we're ready to bring those incidents to the larger group.
along with getting some additional screen access.
Yes, yes, and I've asked about that as well. So we still have some outstanding requests. That's right.
We know some other things. So I would just hate to bring back a list and say, we've got to talk about this yet, when really they may get resolved once we get this edition.
That's why sometimes you'll hear me refer to it as the initial review. The initial review has been done, but we're not quite ready for a full board review. Yeah. Ms. Martin.
I hear you, Mary. This was something we talked about in the beginning, being comfortable, right? It's something that I brought up at the last one. Are you ready? Gotta be ready. Are we ready? September, October, November, December, 4 months to review 12 months in public meetings. So that would put us at minimum 3 months per. So do you think that you could be ready in September's public meeting to discuss the first 3 months, January, February, March? Yeah, I mean, or whatever, right? Well, but, and yeah, that's, I mean, it's kind of a, yes, I'm asking you personally, but in like a general sense, like, do you think that that would be, in your opinion, do you think that that would be enough time to become comfortable with discussing it? And here's the other pieces, because I don't even know that we could do it in September, right? Because whatever this process is that we bring to discuss these things, that has to be voted on in a public meeting. Well, so I wish your little brain had been triggered in our last agenda setting meeting, because that would be great if we could decide that this afternoon, considering we are ahead of schedule, right, for today's meeting. That would have been great if we could have done that after lunch. So then we would know going forward, you know, what the timeline is or what it's going to look like, right? But and I'm with you, right? If we need to figure out how we're bringing it to the board, you're saying this is the initial review, this is not a board review, right? Like, yes, these are crossing T's and dotting our I's, and I'm with you on this, but we're also have to be very mindful of how quickly we're running out of time. And if we wait until September to decide how we're going to vote, now we have to do 4 months in a public meeting.
But we also could do 4 meetings in a month. Nothing says we can't come back.
Well, that was going to be my next question, right? If we're doing that, I'm thinking we need, you know, at least the first time we prepare for our multi-day meeting,
Sure.
right? Maybe we discover at that first multi-day meeting that we actually just went, shoo, and we only need 1 day, right? But the very first time we should, so that was my follow-up, is that if we're pushing months back towards the end of the year, then we all need to be prepared for multiple meetings or multiple day meetings, right? So that would be the next piece. And again, I really wish that your little gears had been triggered at the agenda setting meeting, because that would be great if we could discuss
I
that.
think we work together as
Well, I'm not, listen, but you were triggered today to think that. And so I'm just saying, I wish that it didn't, I wish it had happened when it was on today's agenda.
Well,
I'm not,
and I will say this to your point, Vanessa, also, one of the things we need to learn through this process is how many incidents people are bringing to the meetings. I mean, we could go through 2 months and someone may say, I've only got one I want to talk about. You know, so your point is well taken, that we may have to do multiple months, but there may actually not be that many
right.
that we want to discuss. And so part of the reason why that wasn't on the agenda today was because I still think we do have some fact finding to do before we start to decide how we want to implement those procedures. I think to Mary's point, there's a lot of learning that still needs to happen, and we can begin at any time we want to make plans, but likely those plans will have to change as we get further down this process. So I was hopeful that we could get through these 2 really important, really big discussion points today. And then to Mr. Frank's point, if we are ready to have that substantive discussion about, well, I want to talk about these things. I've gotten everything that I need from the Department of Corrections. I've got all the screens I need from Thomas, and I want to take action on this disciplinary or this trend. let's have a meeting and let's discuss. Okay, great. We have one board member that wants to move forward with this substantive discussion. Let's do that.
And how long they're gonna,
I-
and I'm not being negative, I'm just saying, did they have staff? Are they gonna be able to turn things, we want this, we get it 3 days later, or is it gonna be month later?
It's part of the learning process. You're right. I don't know. You're absolutely right.
I'm
Mr. Veth.
To review every one of the incidents. And it's not as if the board is working, and isn't doing a tremendous amount of work. The notion that the proof of my work is some vote on something is one way to look at it. But I think the other way to look at it is simply the fact that 7 people have read every Class A incident that occurred in a calendar year and are thinking through using a uniform standardized checklist and arriving at observations that translate into suggestions and recommendations is, I think, very noteworthy and is in keeping with what we've been statutorily asked commission to do. So taking a vote on a particular incident or a group of incidents may at some point materialize. But I don't want to miss acknowledging all 7 people's effort in being able to read 20,000, however many incidents in a very short window period of time, and being able to make cogent observations about what we've seen and be able to communicate that with one another. I really think that that is an achievement and an accomplishment that is worthy of acknowledgement and may be sufficient for this moment in time.
and before, I know Jerry was about to say something before you started, but before we break to him, I just want to, yes, right? Like, I think pulling back from the numbers and the data and like, this is on paper what we did, right? And pulling back and looking at the human effort, right? The sweat equity that's gone into this and saying in the last year, we have done X, Y, and Z, and maybe we've only reviewed the first quarter, right? Maybe we didn't get to all 12, right? That's pulling back. I know you want to be able to say, we've reviewed the whole year in January, right? When we go in front of whoever we go in front of. But to Mary's point, the creation of these flow charts, right? And the creation of the spreadsheets and the learning how to do it. We all came in this, most of us not having a single idea what this was about, like how to even do this. And we created it, right? We built it. Maybe we haven't done all the work for the whole year, but we built it. It's done, right? So I just wanted to, yes, snaps. Yes, absolutely, 1,000%. I know it's pulling back from his goal for us, but it's an important point. Yes, I just wanted to acknowledge
I want to clarify. I actually think I'm
No, I understand. I understand.
Well, his goal was to be able to say we reviewed all 12, all the whole year in January.
By the end of
Oh.
this calendar year.
Well, I totally misunderstood that. I thought you were saying like maybe we don't get to all of them,
No,
but
I'm
we
saying
say,
we do.
okay.
But maybe we don't.
And I'm taking all my snaps back, Mary. But
maybe we don't. But maybe
still,
we don't.
Okay, so now you triggered my little brain that maybe we don't have to look at the whole year and rush through it.
Well, I think
Right,
there's, I
like-
think there's two ideas here. The first idea is that we are committed to doing something. And the second idea is if we can do that, great. But if we can't, we aren't going to do it poorly or consider it a failure.
I'll give you. Listen, I'll
Look,
give you-
I'll make, I do want to let, I think we can too. But I want to give,
That's what you just said.
I want to give Mr. Vassbinder a chance, but I'll make an analogy. I'll make a sports analogy also. You set out at the beginning of the year if maybe you're a football team to win the Super Bowl. Now, if you just get to the playoffs, the whole year is not a failure. I mean, if we aren't able to accomplish our goal, that's not a failure. And I'm proud to stand up before anybody and say we have worked our butts off and this is what we've been able to do. But I just want to make sure that we all have the same goal in mind.
Well, I think that what Lee just said is kind of where, like, and Mary nodded as well, that's more of what I was saying. We reviewed all 12 months. We might not have voted
Yeah.
on all 12
Oh.
months. Mary, is that where you're going as well? That we've reviewed but maybe not voted? Or do you think we can vote on all of
I'm unsure where the conversation of voting. We haven't developed a context for that yet. We're still developing the
Okay.
context,
Uh-huh.
and we may get to that. But that's as yet to be fleshed out.
Right, so you're with agreeance with what he just said,
I'm
which is
with
what I was saying. Not that we hadn't reviewed them, but that we didn't vote on them, so you could have all your snaps back. Because we were thinking the same thing, just saying it in different words. So yes.
Mr. Vassbinder was very patient.
Office, or attention, Lee and I were looking at a case that Betsy had brought up when we were talking with EEOC last week. It happened at Northwest Corrections. We were looking at it yesterday, and the guy actually, it was a case, he was released last Thursday, and we were talking to TDOC. And that was one of the cases that we discussed with them. My suggestion would be for reviewing is, like, we're on the 14th, basically what I've looked back in all of July is compiled. And got the, basically by the 15th of the month, like for August, we could start looking at July. I think we need to try to stay one in the present and then go back with whatever situation, because if the further we go back, if we see some that really pulling a flag up and we look, this person may not even be in the system anymore.
Oh.
What we found yesterday was the guy that Betsy had questions on was released 8th day of August. That was on the day on Easter.
And we don't even know the January. What if we go and they just, but like, that guy needs 9 months taken, and you don't take any time.
He's gone.
Or if he's not even gone, is that going back? Because Jerry had talked about the Supreme Court case, are we going back too far? Is there an amount of time that we can go back and take time from people?
Well, this is why I say we don't know. That's why I say this is just the initial review. And to everyone's point, there's going to be multiple factors that go into whether or not we can take action, what kind of action we should take at the end of it, whether we're talking, even if we can't take action maybe on a particular case, do we see a trend? Do we still want to highlight that case and say, while we can't fix that, we want to change policy so that that doesn't happen again? So there's a lot of different ways to peel the orange. But right now, we're just doing the initial review. And so to everyone's point, yes, it might not be that a heavy lift. Once we get to the discussion about what do we want to actually do, it may not be as heavy a lift as we're expecting, because maybe a lot of these things get solved in the information gathering portion of it. Maybe a lot of these questions resolve themselves because a particular incident has offender or something has been released. So there's still a lot to know. And so to the point about putting that item on the agenda, I'm always in favor of making sure that our meetings are substantive and are taking the correct amount of time. But I also want to be careful about coming to these forums, these meetings, with a set of ideas that we can dig into, as opposed to just an open discussion, which I think sometimes leads us into a lot of good stuff, but doesn't end up in any concrete work. And so like today, one of the reasons we're able to get through a lot of today is because we were able to review some things that have already been created. And so as we come to the meetings, I will, and this is just a more of a general point, I am happy to put anything on the agenda if we think we are ready to talk about that. But the discussion about how we're going to vote or what the next steps are going to be after the initial review, that maybe a subcommittee needs to be formed, or we start to articulate those ideas so that when we do come to the meeting, everyone has some things to look at and can give their thoughts on some things that have been fleshed out. So I know that wasn't on the discussion today, and maybe it could have been or should have been considering the time components, but at the same time, I would be a little bit wary of not having some more heft to an agenda item, and that particular point is a very, very important next step. But because we are still in the initial review process, we may not be there yet, because everyone's going to have some really good ideas on what do we do about this? How do we treat this? Where do we go? I'm ready to discuss this. Well, I'm not. I've looked at this and I want to have this on the agenda, but we also need to build in time that the other board members are alerted to this. This is a discussion that this particular board member wants to have. Please review this packet of information. Please go back and look at this incident so that when we come together, we can talk about it. So there's still certainly some time. And while by the end of this year, I would love to be rocking and rolling. I think to your point, Ms. Murtaugh, we probably won't be there, but there are certainly things we can do from now until the end of the year where we continue to build out that process.
I'm ready.
Well, we had one more point.
Couple points, sitting here thinking. Going back to the initial pool of cases, at mass numbers for us to review. If it ever gets to be a burden for you two gentlemen, something like that could be rotated amongst the board members by a monthly basis. That's just an if, okay? I know y'all enjoy it, but you never know what could happen. Secondly, as far as the auto-generated case load, instead of taking, number 1 and number 8, and they could be color-coded, and all the red cases are Jerry's, and all the blue cases are whatever. So on the list, it's just a different color. You could see who's got what case. Well, that's a blue one. That's mine. Whatever. That would make it easier than having to deal with numbers all the time. And that could be easily done with computer script. Sure, whatever color. And I think a lot of these cases, to give an analogy, it's going to be like preparing meals at a restaurant. It depends on what the ingredients are in the case. Some are going to be ready for a vote quicker than others, because some of these cases, a large percentage of the ones I've seen, we need a lot more information from the facility. And until we're able to establish an avenue for getting below the surface and getting all the details that we need, we can't give a legitimate vote on a case. We don't even know what happened behind Thomas, because all we're seeing is the tip of the iceberg. So we could have a well-oiled machine where, these cases are ready. This is a pizza that came up pretty quick. We can every month. These cases are, once we establish a format for voting on whatever, we can vote on these cases, but some of these are going to take a lot more time. So by the end of the year, we can have an initial review on everything, but there's no way I see a legitimate vote on everything unless we've had the opportunity to get what's needed behind the scenes. And that's going to take time because of the process, unless we're able to establish a quick interstate, so to speak, of flow of information to us that has to be established. It's not established yet.
No,
But,
I agree
that's
100%.
a huge part of what we have to do.
And we are working on that to that point.
Absolutely.
But we have not, you're absolutely right. We haven't gotten there yet. And so there's no telling how long something will take. And to that first point that you made about rotating the incidents amongst everybody, that was one of the benefits of everybody doing everything all at once. So everybody has seen, well, how do you go into Thomas and retrieve the incidents? And I know Mr. Bassbinder and Mr. Frank are willing to do that, but to the the point that was just made, we can rotate it because everybody's done it. They've done it at least once. Same thing with the incident review. We all went into May, we all looked at the incidents, we all got comfortable. So now we know what we need to do and we can split up the work. So I think that's a great point. It doesn't, what we do right this instant doesn't have to be what we do in perpetuity, but hopefully we can get to the point where we're making significant progress, and that's my only goal. I don't think we'll answer all our questions by the end of the year either. I don't see that as being feasible, but we do think what's feasible is to commit to doing our best to try and do an initial review of all of them, and then seeing where that takes us. How much more can we do beyond that?
I was gonna make, just before we make the motion, and I was just thinking the psychology. And I talked to Michael about it, and you guys can poo-poo it next time. We've done May and June in our head. Okay, I know we've done about what you would do, split them all. My idea is that we do January just to catch up, so we feel and get momentum and feeling good. We go January through April, and then we go July forward. And at the end of the year, we come back and hit May and June because we've already done some of May and June. Somebody said, have you done May and June? Yeah, we've done some. Okay, have we done all of it? No. Does that make any sense? Do you think we could do May and June? I don't think it really matters when we do them, because we're going back to do January, so it's not like it's a time sensitive thing. Or would you guys just read it? Because to me, psychologically, I've looked at May and June. Okay, I'll do it at the end once I'm caught up and I'm going one to one. Does that help?
Well,
Anybody, what do you think?
on that, take out the sample that we've all.
Yeah.
From Angie. And divvy them up, divide it by 7. But in my mind, I agree with you. You know, I'll hold those to be the last ones that I look at,
Right.
right? But like you said, get on January, February, March, April.
And then hit July.
Hit July, August. We won't see Decembers this year. We won't
It's
see,
just a thought.
yeah, we won't see Novembers even until, the middle of
Yeah, the end of December.
Christmas, right? So we're trying to get through October's realistic.
I'm
But
looking at it.
I like what you're saying.
I'm looking at it like, have you ever done a job and you got paid first and then you had to do the job and you're like, yeah, are you kidding me? I've already spent this money and then a week later I gotta go do the job.
It's called a pre-reward, and it 100% does not work.
I don't know, and if nobody likes that, we can do it.
Can I add an extra thought to pile on what you said? Regardless of what order we go into, when the cases are being pulled and all the Class A's are being pulled into a chart or a list, whatever you want to call it, I think one of the steps taken, not only is it a Class A, what's the release date? And if it's a soon or quick or upcoming release date, that should be a priority case.
So that's an excellent point, and I do want to, and I know Ms. Murtaugh has her hand up, but I just want to let everybody know that once we get done with this discussion, I would like to have a further discussion on the spreadsheet, particularly. I think there are some things we can do to make that spreadsheet better. So, Mike, if you would remind everybody about that thought, because
I agree, yeah.
So we will get into that. I think everyone's got good ideas. Remember, that's an internal sheet that we create. I mean, we need it to be the best we can. So I think that's a good point. I've got some ideas about that. So I just wanted to throw that out there. We are, it's not on the agenda, but we do have some extra time. So we will be talking about the spreadsheet specifically. Ms. Murtaugh, you've had your hand up. I apologize.
I think I'm gonna say the same thing Mary just said, but I'm not sure. So I want to make sure. Mary, what I heard you say was he divvies them up. Like he goes back to January, right? He divvies them all up to include May and June. But if you want to hold those till the end, because that's your preference and that's Lee's preference, that's what you do, but he's gonna divvy them all up at one time.
Yeah, but
Okay.
he would go ahead and.
But it, yeah, but it's like if I want to do them in order, because I don't feel the same way that you do. Okay, then yes, I agree with Mary, what Mary said. Yeah, just divvy them all, not waiting on May and June, just divvying them all up. And they, work through them however, if I want to do, March before I do January, I could do that, right? Yeah, okay, so I agree with Mary.
That's And I just want to highlight that. That's one of the benefits of this is I want to give everybody the ability to work at their own schedule so that you'll have your stuff. And if you have a particular week that's very slow with family obligations and everything else, and you want to run through 2 or 3 months, great. If you have a few weeks that you're very busy with other things, then, push off that stuff until the end of the month or whatever works for you. I think this system will allow everybody some flexibility in their day-to-day functioning. And I always thought that might be helpful to everybody because people move at different speeds and people have different lives. And so to that point, I'm hopeful that will be exercised, that discretion will be exercised. Once you have your group, the expectation is that you're working on it, and by the end of the year, we will have that initial review done. But it's kind of on you to do it as you see fit. Yes, Ms. Murtaugh.
My motion say, when you go home Thursday afternoon or Friday, and you're making this list, what are the months, January through July?
Do we have July done? Yes, so it would be January through July.
Okay, I'm ready. I'm gonna move that Lee Frank and Jerry Bassfinder continue to create the list
Through the year.
I'm gonna dig back to Mary, because when we get to January, we won't have December, right? So are we saying through November? Dr. Carpos?
Whoever is gonna do that part, for me, the motion, if I could make it, and I'm not, but we've got two choices. How are we gonna distribute? Every 7, just divide the total number by 7 for each month. Or, as you were asking early on in the discussion, would particular facilities belong to particular board members? So my motion is that each month's pot of incidents is divided equally amongst the 7 board members. Just
Well, we need to figure out who's making that list. And so that for me is part of my motion. And so that's what I'm asking in December. If we're making it through December, what's the end month is November?
No, if I can clarify that, we will be able by January the 3rd, we'll be able to give this call. All
December.
of December.
Okay, all right.
What Dr. Carpos is saying, because of the lag of the boards, they fall basically a couple of weeks, 2 to 3 weeks behind. So we wouldn't have been able to have reviewed probably all of November.
But we would have the infractions. We just wouldn't have the disciplinaries. Okay, thank you. All right, so my motion is that Lee Frank and Jerry Bassfinder continue to create the list of Class A infractions through December.
Till we done.
I'll get my caveat in there. Don't worry. I'll get the caveat in there. Through December, no, I'll get the caveat in there. Through December, Director Stahl will randomly distribute even numbers of disciplinaries to each board member, with the goal being to have individually reviewed every case for the entire year by January. Subject to change at any moment. Like for now, this is the plan for now. That would be my.
just the very final part, realistically, we can go October. Because of the lag of the hearings.
Okay, so motion to amend, even though it was never seconded, with review through October.
Have a second?
Do I need to repeat it?
Yes.
Yes.
I'll second. Okay.
Lee and Jerry make it. He sends it out. We individually review all the way through October.
Okay, I'd like to open up to
Debate.
that specific motion to discussion. And I want to, before anyone else raises their hand, we have two board members we haven't heard a lot from on this particular issue. So Ms. Wiseman or Mr. Lindsay, do you guys have any thoughts on the motion?
I missed a little of it. I was picking my daughter up, but no, I'm just kind of taking it in. So I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? So we've heard the motion. Does anyone have anything that they would like to discuss on the particular motion on the floor?
Absolutely. Make it a
Would
amendment.
it be simpler to say henceforth, executive director will distribute out starting beginning January 1st, 2024, in perpetuity as the incidents come available each month? I mean, are we gonna do this? Is this how do we see doing this forever?
Well, I think what we said, well, I think what we said earlier, but it was more like between he and I, is that in January, like we could review it again in January and reevaluate about where we're at. Because to Dr. Carpos's point, like, when we finally figure out how we're gonna present this as a board, we might change how we do
That's
this
true.
as individuals,
And-
right?
and I
Like, there
would
could be a lot of things that change. But for now, this seems to be okay, and everybody seems to be okay with it,
That's
right?
fine.
I mean, I'm assuming,
That's a good.
I'm not hearing anybody say, no,
We
this sucks.
reassess in the rest of the year and say
This isn't working, or this part I found difficult, or this part I found really great. or whatever.
Withdraw.
Okay, well,
Second.
well, we have a second. So hearing no further discussion, I will move to a vote. I will do a all board vote. I won't do a roll call vote. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Okay, well, wonderful. That is great. And to that point, just to put a bow on this particular issue, my plan, now that you've given me the authority to do it, is to go with the idea that everybody be assigned a number, and then we just go through the incidents for that, the disciplinaries for that month.
It's whatever works best for you as well. Yeah, because you're.
Well, that's what I'm thinking right now, and we could see how that works, and then we can change it. Is that okay with everybody? That's what I'm hearing. We can give that a shot, and then, like you said, Ms. Murtaugh, I mean, we can change it. I mean, we're not married to that.
Yeah,
Now that we-
it might be too much for you.
It might
We don't
be.
know.
It might be.
Like, I don't think it will be, because you're a pretty great guy, but it might
Well.
be, and you might come back and you're like, guys, I need you to take some of this off my plate, because we're not getting this staff or that staff or.
But that's why I liked your motion, because your motion was we are going to review the disciplines on an individual basis per month.
Right.
Now, how we distribute that, I'll figure out, and I will talk to everybody about. So if we need to change it, we don't need to revote.
You extended me my particular 227.
That
Or do I go on the screen?
No, I think I can do that. I think I will. You'll see both. You'll see. I'm going to send out a spreadsheet that shows the month and the assignment, who was number one and who's number two. But then I will also send everybody individually a second spreadsheet that pulls out their
Okay.
particular incidents.
I personally,
Yeah, I would like individual,
I
like, send it
I
to
would
me.
want to get an email from Michael Stahl, and those are mine.
You will get that, but you will also get the master list just so that you can see how everybody was assigned to it and whatever. I'll do both because I have to do the master first before I can pull yours out.
Does anybody- Being able to see what everybody was assigned, does anybody have it, is everybody okay? Like, I always, like, because in my head, that I have this knee-jerk reaction that should be, not visible. Like, I shouldn't know.
Well, my reaction
I don't
to it
think-
is,
It's just a weird knee-jerk reaction, so I just wanted to get anybody, and everybody's like, no, that's.
well, the reason I was thinking about doing it was because I want everyone to know this is how it was done. If you've got any questions, don't think that anybody was left off. Nobody didn't get their 200 or whatever. A little bit. Yeah. I mean, I have to create that list anyway. So I thought everything I do, I try to get to you all. I really do, just so that you can see it, confirm if you have questions about it, we can do it differently. So my thought was you'll get two spreadsheets. One will be, you could see everybody was put on there. This is how it was divided up. But for ease of use, here's your incidents for that month taken out separately. So just make it easy.
Well. If you guys have time, if you want to go check and you're like, Lee, I don't understand what you're doing here. Why did you think this wasn't okay? I mean, I think that's good for all of us, just to bounce it back and forth, like, where are you going with this? Why is this not okay? I thought it was okay.
And here's what I'll,
Fine, we can check my work.
I'm sorry?
Didn't we follow up and do that and discuss why we thought certain ones were not okay and work?
Yeah.
I'm just saying in the future.
I'll
I
check
mean,
it
I
out.
don't care. I didn't think about that.
I'll check it out.
Yeah, there's no expectation to do that.
No, that's it. I'm new at chicken third grade.
And here's what just as a final point on that, we're still building out the FileNet system. So what will probably happen, or this is what we'll do in the beginning, is I'll create that master list that everybody on a monthly basis, number one, number two, whatever, that will be shared in the FileNet. But when I take out your individual ones, I'm just going to send that to you individually. So that won't be on the FileNet. So if everyone needs to go in and review, what everyone's doing, it'll be there. I doubt they will, but I plan on utilizing the FileNet as a shared resource anyway. So even
I'm saying we share each other. I can't figure it out. I hope I'm there.
I hope so.
Well, while I personally, for example, I use my brother Dunn, Chair, why I won't be going to check Dunn, because Dunn was appointed with someone else to have his opinion on the topic. So like when I'm looking and I see Lee thinks that, I may call him and say, could you elaborate why? But I think that's the power of the board. I read something, I saw an incident, I thought it was okay. That's what I was appointed to do. I thought it wasn't. I think now me and Mary have sat down and done it together, and we agree they're okay. And I'm like, she had that, and I'm like, that's not okay. And she said, well, tell me why. After I shared my position, she's like, oh, I didn't see that part. But I think it's kind of we do operate in a synergy and unity, but we are going to have different opinions. So
That's the idea. Yeah.
So if Chairwoman Murtaugh looks and say, I think this was okay, and I say, I don't think it was, I think we'll slow each other down and going by. We can end the year and it's like, well, these two never agreed. I don't believe we were put here to agree on the incident. We were here to look at the incident and establish a verdict based. We all have a one vote. So I kind of think that kind of goes against the creation of where we are. Like,
well, aren't we going to do that? Like when we bring them, like when you bring 20 or 8 from, let's say, November, isn't that what we're going to do? We're going to.
Eventually, I think we all come together.
You're right. We're not there.
And that raises another thing as well. Like, how are we, again, we, through our session of our work session, is like, okay.
Well, I didn't want to stop in mid.
No,
No, I was just telling him I gave you snaps earlier.
Well, okay. Did you want to finish?
Yes, please finish.
Yes, I'll finish. What I was saying was, I think you have a group that are like, it's different lenses that we are looking at these things from. No matter how hard, he's going to look from an investigative lens, an attorney's lens, someone that worked on the inside, a sheriff lens. So Jerry is probably like, when I say deep dive, looking at this and looking, and Lee may say, well, this brother got let me see his whole track record. Let me see what he did 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Some of us are probably saying, I'm not charging this, I'm not going to convict this inmate today by what he did 5 years ago. So some of us are really looking at the persons involved, the description, what was it, the guidelines, and we're not going through his or her whole 10 years rap sheet. So those are the questions I want to ask. Are we called to do that? Are we called to look at incident 163-555 and this inmate and say, he should have got more of this because he has this track record of going and going and going? How many of us are looking at it like that? Are we going through their whole, when they got there, when they're going to be released, how many times have they committed that infraction?
I think you can see a lot of it just by their disciplinary.
Yes.
like the one that shows up when they disappear,
Again,
you
yeah.
don't get a good feel.
You'll
if
get a
it's
good
bad
feel.
apple.
So what I'm saying is, I believe we're gonna end up with not okays and okays, because some of us are gonna be in our routine to always check their track record. Some of us are gonna look at the incident, what happened, the description, and vote from there. So to go back and look and be like, Q, why'd you say not okay? Because I didn't go back to 03 when he got here. I looked at the incident. And you went back to 2013. So to go back and try to get this uniformity of outcomes going back again, that's equity. We're giving them equality, which means we're looking at all the A's. Equity speaks to the outcome. And I think that's just when he said that, when like looking, and I'm not trying to match Dunn's. That's not my goal.
Right.
This was my take. Because, and what we're doing, we're looking at all the A's, is telling the legislator, every inmate received equality. We can't promise equity. Because that.
You got to clap,
Oh.
not just snap.
So what I was saying, I think when we look at like the uniformity and our outcomes look, that's equity. I can't determine the outcome of what Chairwoman Murtaugh or Dr. Corporal thought and saw. I thought it wasn't okay. What he looked and spent another 30 seconds and thought it wasn't, and found something that I see. Now he got my number, he can call and raise my awareness, but I still reserve the right to say, no, I'm gonna stick.
I'm just gonna look at this.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, there's that individuality that's built
Yeah,
into
I
it.
like that.
Um,
Good points.
The other cases, I'm gonna be busy with yours. Unlikely that I will be checking it, or you checking it. And my only thought was this, there will be times throughout any given year where we may need to help each other.
Amen.
Something happens, and I'm through. So far, something happens, I need help. I know I can call them and say, look, there's another 50 on my list. Would you help me with those? That was how I was just looking at it, that we can be of help to each other, because we're all gonna have those moments when we need them.
Yes.
But not that I want to check anybody else.
No,
No.
we've worked, and me and you text and call, and I speak to the board. I was talking about the individualities. Dunn or Saul said it, where we were appointed by certain, to uniformity. I don't think it's advantageous to the guards, to the inmates, to the correction officers, if Mike Dunn says, I'm gonna look at this through the lens solely of Quantel. Take my opinion, take my perspective, but come to your own conclusion. I think we represent those who appoint us better, and Tennesseans. We're made up of Tennesseans. We don't need to come and Michael Stahl goes in and turn in all these okays, and if we all come to okays, we came to okays. But if they're different, we're different.
Right.
With different backgrounds,
But
different life.
I'm saying at the end, when we decide to do something, we had to come up with that process. We're gonna have to have a vote. One person shouldn't be able to, I mean, if we're gonna take credit from a guy and we figure out a way to do that, it's gotta be like a 4-3 vote. It's not gonna be just you decide we're gonna take credit. Or I
Okay.
decide we're gonna take credit. That's what I'm talking about, looking at each other's like, if I don't mean you going and checking my okays. I mean, like, if I've got some not okays, I expect you to, or if you want to, I'm like, kind of like what we did with May and June. Is that not what we kind of did? Like Betsy had one that I missed. They let the guy go. But you remember the one we brought up?
You were referring to
Little-
credit.
Can you get us like little lights?
You were
or
referring to
something-
credit.
something?
It's not
Right.
I'm the only one raising my.
Yes.
Are you
I'm saying, I looked at
Oh,
her.
the team's
I just
Raise
said
your little
that
hand.
sometimes-
Sometimes you gotta let them just go.
That's the one
Yeah,
I
well,
brought
we
up.
should be done with the meeting right
now.
You weren't there.
We already voted on the
He's
last
the one
agenda,
that they let
and there's
out.
no public to come.
The actual day.
I'm not closing.
Don't
Don't close
about
this yet.
him. He was
We don't.
let out
It's gonna
that
be on record.
afternoon.
Okay, well, I'll talk
Well,
about
I want to get everybody's thoughts on what we want to do next.
That shouldn't be one sole vote.
I don't think so. Does anybody think?
And then
it
can I
should
close it?
No, it goes-
Yeah.
Yes, yes, that's, yeah.
be? Right.
Wait, I didn't.
I think it's me, yeah, we're.
No.
Yeah, we're at the,
They're all
at
the
the
same
end,
thing.
we start looking. I'm just
Well,
like-
Lee looked at me because what do you think? I was like, I don't know.
No,
No, no.
I was like, I wasn't following. What's that now?
They're all on the
Who's
same
that?
page. Everybody agreed.
Okay.
Yeah, we got.
They all agree.
we came
Everybody
together.
agreed. That's the
I told him I
takeaway.
got my own part.
There are no
I'm not gonna
problems.
be like,
Well, I will emphasize, I think, I will emphasize two things really quickly. I think there's a difference between the initial review process and then the board taking action. And so, you know, we can't do that individually, but certainly we can bring our individual perspectives to different incidents. And we have to remember that that's a good point. But, you know, to your point, Mr. Frank, about the opportunity to go further than what's assigned to you, that will probably be more of an issue at the end of this year into next year, right? With as much work as everybody has to do to catch up, everyone's going to be pretty busy for a while. And so it may be something that does come up, but right now I wouldn't suspect that that's going to be a particularly, problematic issue just because of our posture and our stature. But Ms. Martel, you did have your hand up.
Oh, well, no, I want to close this out. So if you have something before you want to.
Yes. We're ahead of schedule, but not entirely because we never took our lunch break. So we have an opportunity now. We have two choices. We can finish up the meeting and go to lunch and then have everybody come back at 2:00 for the group photo session on the 4th floor. Or if we want to take a shorter lunch or just a break and come back, we can have, it's not on the agenda, but a discussion about the spreadsheet and some things we can do with the spreadsheet. I know that was brought up earlier and I promised to get back to that. So those are our two choices now. We have finished the agenda. We can do the public comment, which will be quick because we don't appear to have any members of the public here. Close the meeting, go to lunch, and then hopefully, if everybody would not maybe go home, but come back at 2:00 for the photo meeting. That's option A. And then option B, though, is we don't officially close the meeting. We come back after a short lunch or a break, and we continue to discuss the spreadsheet. I'm open to either of those. If we don't get an opportunity to discuss the spreadsheet today, we can always set a meeting for later this week and have a working session where we work on the spreadsheet. So I'm fine with that.
I would like to say to Brother Dunn, he didn't get it. I think lunch probably, because I really need to get on the road. I'm going and trying to find a spot. Are you still thinking lunch?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
He's always thinking lunch.
Well, we can talk about that. We can talk about that offline. Well, we'll be able to leave out the picture at 2. Either option, we'll be able to leave after 2.
Or we're going for a shorter lunch and then discussing the spreadsheet and taking.
Coming back.
We can discuss it.
Lunch, picture, home.
Lunch, picture, home, or short lunch here, picture, home.
We're gonna move forward and take a picture without Betsy.
Correct.
Well, we can always reschedule it. So I already, first of all, I already scheduled it. Second of all, we don't really have any pictures of us on the website and we don't have anything to commemorate all the work that we've been doing. So I'd like to have at least one photo of everybody, and then the other point to that is, we're also trying to rotate people out. So not everybody has to travel to all the meetings. So we may not get an opportunity to have a full group photo if we want to let everybody not come to every meeting. So if we hold off for that, it may never happen. And
it's kind of like what we're doing with the last motion, right? We're going to take this picture without Betsy. And then when the time arises where we're all together, one day we can do it.
We can do it again.
Yeah.
We can do it
Just
again.
to get something up on the website.
Just so that we have something. I mean, you never know. It's just nice.
Who's taking?
Photo services.
Okay. so that's
It's
set
through
up
the
too,
state.
'cause
Yeah.
they haven't. Okay.
No, yeah, they're coming too from the towers. So it's a reservation and all that.
Okay.
So it's professional service. So, I mean, if you don't want to do it, I'll call her and cancel it. I just thought it'd be nice.
Yeah. That's cool. I mean,
I thought it'd be nice to do, but we don't have to. I mean, it's not married to it.
That's Bob.
I was really like, I figure I'll find a young person crop Betsy right on here.
Yeah, why not?
Betsy, are you there? Are you even paying attention? We're talking about you in the third person, like you don't exist.
Yes, I want to be photoshopped in.
Okay, all right.
Awesome.
Okay.
I was just wanting to make sure. I know we were joking about. It's good. I'm good.
Okay. Well, what would everyone like to do? A short lunch and come back and continue the meeting, or a long lunch, end the meeting now, long lunch, picture, and then we'll set another working session later in the week.
I vote for number 2.
Number 2.
So, okay,
Oh, wait.
Okay. Okay.
Now, it
Um,
can't be that
all right.
long. We've got to be here at 2. Is it not 1, right?
it's 1, it's 1:00, yeah.
Like Chick-fil-A?
Listen.
Well, let's do the public comment. We'll close the meeting and then we'll talk about lunch. That way Betsy can get on with her day also. Well, I just want to let Betsy get on with her day too. Once the meeting's finished, she can go. And then we can talk about lunch.
No problem.
Okay.
Okay, I just wanted, that's the room, the 615 is the room. So I just wanted to follow up with something that Mary said about supporting each other, and that there may come a day where you need help, or I need help, or somebody needs help. And I just wanted to point out that I think that as a group, we've been pretty good at that. There was a time when it was just the 3 of us, and Mary lost her sister, and we rallied, right? And then my son lost his father. You've lost family members. You know, Lee had surgery, right? Jerry and his, appointments in Memphis, right? We have completely, supported, and your wife being sick, right? I think at some point, one or all of us has had something going on, and instinctively, we as a collective had rallied and picked up whatever weight we needed to pick up and allowed for whatever concessions we needed to allow. So I think that to Dr. Publis's point, going forward, if anybody called anybody on this board, the answer is always. I did want to circle back to something that Stahl brought up at the beginning, Ms. Eliza Fletcher. That's my hometown, right? That city was rocked to its core that day. The 2nd of September will be the anniversary, 2 years. I do want to just throw some other dates out there. August 30th is Finish Eliza's Run. It starts at 4:20 in the morning. Memphis does it. It's now gone nationwide. It's unfortunate that it's due to her loss, but it has brought awareness across from Charleston to Michigan, right? So that's something to be of note. And so August 30th, if anybody wants to get up at 4:00 in the morning and at 4:20 go take a run, do it. And then trial was set for February 10th. He did not take a plea. So Cleotha will go to trial on February 10th, and I will be there. 1,000%, I will be there with that family. Yeah, and so in all of that, I'm gonna go ahead and adjourn this meeting, saying let's continue to do the right thing for the right reasons every day. Listen, I was like, drop mic, walking out the door.
It
Go,
was good.
go.
Or, I was gonna talk to installing the board. Shouldn't we make on that anniversary, should the board put some on our website in her remembrance and honoring her? And, I don't know how many board members will go out to the trial, but I just wanted to, as far as our website and stuff, just to honor her family and just do something on that anniversary, as far as our website or any social media pages. That's all.
We can absolutely do that. Allow me to work on something and I'll bring it to everybody and we can make sure it's what we want to say, and then we can definitely.
Just to remember.
Memphis has one too, and she'll definitely be on that tree. It's season of remembrance. It's in the Christmas holidays, yeah.
So maybe we can have a showing at the parole boards when they have
Sure.
that, because that's who. That may be more difficult for others to travel, but.
Well, there's one in everybody's, right? And we'll have one that Eliza's picture will be on that tree. So, in Memphis. Yeah, so.
That really. Because our work, while sadly started in relationship to this, our work should touch present safety.
I think both would be a good idea. Let's get dates for both. Yeah.
There's a lot of people that-
Absolutely. Absolutely.
No, and I agree. Yeah, no, no. So again, close it out, and if nobody else has anything else, we'll adjourn this meeting at 1. Too late. We're done.
Let's go see Stall and
That's a
then.
great idea. You know, I've always thought, Mary, about coming to the one in Nashville. and I
Thanks,
never
thanks,
have.
Betsy. We're gonna let you go. I'm gonna end the meeting now.
Okay, thank you guys. Have a good day.
Well, we
See
need
you,
to make
Betsy.
sure
Bye.
that-
Bye.
You have a
I
restaurant.
believe
I didn't have a chance to look.
I've never been here. Fourth and U is Fourth
is
and Union.
the family members. of the
It's basically a 3-minute walk.
Let's
right?
do
Like,
it.
it's
Let's
not
do it.
automatic
Phillips
that they're
Pizza. I've never heard of
included,
Phillips Pizza either.
Right,
Yeah.
so I wonder.
Let's do
I
it. That
wonder
sounds
how
good.
it works. That's how it works in Memphis, right? As far as the pictures and things like that, like,
This is totally
so like prosecute, no, I mean, the family